Good morning everyone, hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today we're going to be talking about a pretty excellent budget battle belt. This is or gun belt or equipment belt. For me it basically is a range belt because it holds my gun, holds some magazines, some extra equipment, and that's really about it. But we're going to be talking about the Condor LCS Cobra. It's a very inexpensive option to get you into a high quality belt that will hold basically more than you would ever need to actually carry on you. Now, before we get into that, if you want to help out the channel in any way, you can of course like, share, and subscribe because all that is free. You can also buy my AR500 steel targets. I have a bunch on the website right now. They are selling very fast and I've been very busy with them. Also, last thing, you can do a subscribe star, which is basically just a pro to a Patreon. You send me some money and I send you some extra content. It's fairly simple and you also get giveaways and cool stuff like that. Alrighty, now let's go ahead and start with one of the most important things when you're talking about a budget belt setup, and that is of course going to be the belt itself, which is the Condor LCS Cobra. Now the Cobra edition of course has real Alpine Cobra buckles. This is 2-inch Cobra buckles on here. That is the only edition that, or the only version of it that I would buy. Condor does make an LCS that is not a Cobra buckle version. It uses plastic buckles, and I've had plastic buckles fail on me multiple times, so basically any belt that I run ever has a Cobra buckle on it, and that's what I do, and I just forget about it. So they do make a cheaper version, but this version, as you see it right here, retails for anywhere from $60 to $80, and now again, that is just the belt. Now, it's important to note that this belt was actually sent out to me by one of my Subscribe Star guys, so I did not pay for it whatsoever. No company reached out to me to do the review. I just got it for free from one of you guys, and I'm testing it out, and I really, really like it. I've had it for several months now. It's been my main belt, and the reason for that is it's very comfy, and we'll get into that. So let's go ahead and start with just the belt construction first off. As the LCS laser cut system or laser cut supporter, however they're saying it, it is of course 2-inch laser cut MOLLE all the way across. You have 20 slot MOLLE designs, which is quite a bit, so you can fit a lot of equipment on this sort of belt. Now on top of that, it is also a 2-piece system. So if we flip it around to the outside here, on this interior layer, you can see this rubbery material. This is very, very grippy. And as I mentioned, this is a removable inner layer, so it does just rip right off with Velcro. So if you, for instance, wanted to run something else, or you have an inner belt that you really like, maybe one that's even a little bit wider than this, so it gives you a little bit better support like in your lower back and stuff like that, you can absolutely run whatever sort of inner belt you want, but it does come with it. And again, this is about 2.5 inches thick with about 2 inches of it being covered in this nice grippy kind of rubberized material, which is really good when you're putting a belt on you. Now, as you've probably already noticed, this is not a rigid belt system. So this belt system uses the wider material being about 2.5 inches thick on the inner material, the rubberized, to be more comforting, I suppose, not necessarily quite as rigid as some other belt systems out there. For me personally, what I was using before was an 1.5 inch belt from Shepherd Defense, which is more of like an EDC belt or a competition belt, and we're going to do a video on that one later, and I've had that belt for much longer. That's a very, very rigid belt. But with this system, I actually find that the non-rigid systems are a little bit more comfy. They kind of conform to your body because most people have curves unless you weigh like 100 pounds or something like that. So this does conform really nicely to your body while giving you plenty of support and plenty of grip with this inner rubberized material. So I really, really like that. It's also of course modular because you can very easily just swap off this inner belt for something else, or remove it if you don't want to use it, though I would recommend using some sort of inner belt system that will help it adhere to your body a little bit more tightly and of course be a little bit more comfortable by displacing that weight over a larger surface area. Now, this is, I believe, a medium. So to adjust it, you basically remove the inner belt, and then you have another Velcro strap that you lift up, and then you would adjust your buckles to be where you need to be very, very tight on you. So that's about it for the inner belt section. I think they did a really, really good job with it. It's very comfy, it's very grippy, it does not move around on you even when you're running and twisting and doing all sorts of fun stuff. It likes to stay right on you. So now let's go ahead and talk about the main thing, which is going to be, of course, the laser cut MOLLE system. Now, the MOLLE is non-standard, and the reason that they did that supposedly is to get a much tighter fit on the MOLLE itself. So it's not standardized MOLLE. It's a little bit tighter than standard MOLLE, so it actually does do a really good job of holding stuff to the belt itself. However, it can make it difficult to get different pouches and stuff in actually woven through the MOLLE. So keep that in mind, that getting this belt set up might be obnoxious, but once it is set up, you're going to get a very tight, very secure fit, which in my opinion is worth it, because at least for me right now, I'm not changing up setups on this all the time. So for the most part, it kind of stays as it is. Now, something else I do want to mention is that the material that they're using here is part scuba webbing, part 500D Cordura, or however you say that, Cordura, or whatever you want to say. 500 basically is the strength level, so I believe it goes like 500, 550, 600, 800, and 1000. Now, different manufacturers might not have the exact same standards as another manufacturer, so you might need to take some of those ratings with a grain of salt. However, I would say that this is more than strong enough for most people. You could do pull-ups off of it very easily. You have real Cobra buckles, which Cobra buckles are extremely high quality. They're basically the gold standard. So yeah, not a lot to complain about there. All of the stitching is very clean. I believe these are made overseas in like the Philippines or in like Vietnam or someplace like that. So these are not made in the USA, but that's kind of how they get down into that $60, $70, $80 price range for the entire belt system, including the Cobra buckles. Now, the Cobra buckles by themselves, the 2-inch version, are like 30 bucks by themselves. That's basically half of the belt. But the buckle is what holds the belt to you, so it is one of the most important parts, so that is something that you do not want to cheap out on. Again, with plastic buckles on cheaper belts, I actually probably have one laying around here somewhere, I've broken them and they've popped off on me while I'm doing something more physical, whether it's running to a target or something like that, and I don't really like that. So basically anything that I wear has a Cobra buckle on it or some sort of metal locking system on it, so I have a good amount of confidence that it's not going to just randomly come off when it chooses to. So the belt, it's not a super complex system. You have a very nice inner belt that's rubberized, that's comfy. It's about 2.5 inches thick on the inner belt. Then the outer belt that actually holds all of the stuff, which is of course scuba webbing and the 500D, the laser cut MOLLE. Very high quality, and again, for the money, it is a very good price. $60 to $80 is about the lowest price on the market. You'll see some other belts with very similar features, near identical features, going for $120 to $200 in some cases for more name brand or higher name brand type stuff. But this will do basically everything that those belts do for a much lower money, which allows me to spend more money and put more money into different things. So that's about it for the belt itself. I think that the belt does a really good job of allowing you to put a lot of gear on here. Now, it's not what I would run in competition. In competition, I would want a rigid belt, something that's a little bit smaller, a little bit slimmer, because I'm basically only holding magazines and maybe a tool, but basically just magazines for like a 3-gun or some sort of competition type thing. But for more general purpose type stuff, this belt will, because it is MOLLE, it will basically accept any pouch or accessory on the market, and because it is a little bit tighter MOLLE, you can even thread things that are not MOLLE through it, and you'll have pretty good retention on it. So overall, I think that the belt is very high quality, and for the money, probably the best budget battle belt / gun belt on the market. So now let's go ahead and talk about the setup. Some of the stuff I bought, some of the stuff was also sent out with the belt. So some of it is by choice and some of it is stuff that I just happen to have. So don't take everything that's on here with a, as this is what I would do if I had all of my own money into it. But basically this belt is set up very well. There's basically only maybe 1 or 2 things that I would actually change about it. So we're gonna go ahead and start off with the pouches up front. I like to run my pouches basically on the front side of my left leg, so that they're a little bit more in front of me than like behind, so I'm not reaching around for my magazines. So I'm running 2 pistol pouches from STAC Kiwi. Very good. They're kind of a hybrid pouch design. One more time, that sucked. They are, of course, part nylon, part Kydex, so they give you a lot of retention, and they're fairly easy to re-index off of, which is pretty important if you want to save your magazines, or if you're doing different drills and switching out magazines, that sort of thing. It's always nice to be able to just re-index your magazines fairly easily, because that Kydex does keep the magazine pouch open. Now, one thing I will say is these pistol mags, these pistol mag pouches, this is a double pouch, is very, very grippy. So you have an extreme amount of retention on the magazines. If you watch the intro again, a lot of the footage where I'm drawing from these pouches, I am pulling the belt upwards a couple inches before I actually get the magazine out. Some people have said, well, you know, you can heat up the Kydex and make it a little softer so you can get them out faster. The reason I'm not going to do that on these is because for me, it's not a competition belt. It's more of a serious use belt. So if I'm trying to go for sub 2 second reloads, 1R1 reloads, that sort of thing, I'm not going to be running this sort of a belt for that sort of thing. So I like the retention. I like that they're going to stay in there and they're never going to come out unless you want them to. One thing I will say is that if you're using some sort of stubby gun like a Glock 26 or something, the mags do fit, but you basically have to rip it off the top. So again, they're fairly deep and they cover up most of the magazine, which I really like because they're really, really good for retention. Now, the rifle mag pouch, which fits basically any 5.56 magazine or AR-47 magazine, not really AK mags because AK mags are a little bit longer, but if you're running 7.62 by 39 and an AR-15, any of those magazines will work, and as that was what I was using in the intro. Now, the rifle mag pouch is comparatively not as deep, of course, because the magazine is much longer, and also, at least for me, it feels a little bit more simpler to pull out and to re-index. So the mag pouch on the pistol is pretty much perfect. Now, STAC Kiwi does also make a triple pouch where it is 2 mags and 1 rifle, or 2 pistol mags and 1 rifle mag. Basically, I have it set up identical to that. However, this is not a combined unit. I just have them squashed right next to each other. Now, I only run 1 extra rifle mag because 2 extra rifle mags makes it to where I can't move backwards or forwards depending on how I have the mag set up, and it's also a lot more weight because this is going to be one of the heavier things on any belt that you're going to run. Next up on here, I have a very cheap, I think I paid like $7 for this back in the day. I've had it for about 1.5 years. This is a very, very cheap dump pouch, and it is literally just that. Some people charge like 60, 70, 80 bucks for a dump pouch, and since I very rarely use it, if I'm using it, I'm throwing in something empty or maybe a food item or something not very essential. So for me, it's worked, and again, I've had it for about 1.5 years, and some of the stitching looks a little rough on it, but I mean, I don't really use it all that much, so for $7 it has lasted me very, very well. Now, next up, this is a T-Rex Arms med pouch or admin pouch. And my thoughts on T-Rex Arms, basically none of their products interest me whatsoever. They make very high quality products, but for me it was very much so a high value guy. Basically, none of their products are that interesting to me, save their new AC1 plate carrier and their new Ready Rig, which seems like pretty good value for the money, especially considering, you know, American made, all that sort of fun stuff. So T-Rex Arms makes a lot of really good products, really high quality products, but they also charge basically top dollar for it. So not particularly interesting to me when there's a lot of other companies that can do basically the same thing and charge less for it. Now, the pouch itself is very high quality. You have 2 zippers on top. For the medical that I'm running in here, it's very, very simple, as I don't really have much medical training. I have, like, you know, my CPR license and stuff like that, but I basically have stuff for bandages, stuff for burns, and then I have a tourniquet on the bottom right here, which is a really nice feature. You have it on here on this nice elastic on the bottom, and then if I'm running a plate carrier, I also have 1 on my plate carrier. So generally running 2 at any time. Basically, I don't carry any medical that I don't know what to do with it, so I don't just stuff my med pouch full of whatever stuff comes in your basic first aid kit. If I don't know how to use it, I'm not going to stuff it in there and take away from stuff that I actually do know how to use. The reason I keep some burn stuff in here is because I have been running suppressed quite a bit, and if I'm dumb one day and after shooting a couple hundred rounds of 5.56 through a 10.5-inch barrel and that suppressor is basically red hot and I go to check if it's tight or not with my bare hand, I want something to be able to take the edge off of that sort of thing. Next up, we have a hand grenade on the side. No, I'm just kidding. This is an Olight. This is their M1T Raider light. Full disclosure, they did send this out to me back when I did the review on their Balder Mini. They haven't really talked to me since, so I'm not sure if they just didn't like the review I did or if I didn't do good enough job for them or whatever. But the light has been fine. I've actually been EDCing it for, you know, 6 months now, 6-7 months now without issues. It does, it's completely rechargeable, very, very bright, and it has a couple different modes. No problems with it whatsoever. It hasn't heated up on me, hasn't blown up on me either. Alrighty, so now let's go ahead and talk about the last part on the belt, which again for me, this setup is very simple. There's nothing on this belt that I don't use or / would not need to use in a certain situation. So I don't have lots of extra tools on here. I don't have a breech pen. I don't have a bunch of stuff on here that I don't know what to do with. Everything on here is very simple and very set up for what I do, which is basically shooting at the range, testing gear, weird positions, all that sorts of fun stuff. This belt is set up for what I do. If you're and the nice thing about this belt, as I've mentioned many times, is because it is a MOLLE belt where you have 20 slots of MOLLE across it, you can set it up for literally anything. So if you want more equipment, you want more magazines, you want whatever it is that you need for your specific application, for your scenario that you come up with in your head, you can absolutely tailor this belt out to. Now, for the holster system that I use, everything is Safariland QLS. Even this Blackhawk, which I actually just got the adapter plate in so that I could adapt it properly to a QLS. I did have a QLS absolutely butchered with a Dremel tool so that I could hook it up, but now it actually just matches up with a little adapter in between. So it pushes it out a little bit further, so it actually makes it a little bit cleaner for grabs and such like that. But there's a lot of other magazines, or holsters. Here is a competition like Skull Head Arms holster if I wanted to run that. For Glock 17, I also have a Safariland 6378, which is a really good holster, level 2 retention. Most holsters that I run are going to be level 2 retention if I'm actually using them for something. I don't like standard holsters like this unless I'm running competition, because for whatever reason, if you're putting on a belt like this, you probably want that gun to be a little bit more secure than just your standard holster. Even though I know you can tighten down standard holsters, but I don't like that sort of compromise. I'd rather just have some sort of lever or device that allows me to keep that pistol retained until I want it to come out. So I do like the Blackhawk L2D. This one here was actually sent out to me by LA Police Gear when I tested out their light, which is on that Glock 17. But basically any holster will fit on here. And again, that is my preferred adapter method, the Safariland QLS on a UBL, which is just a universal belt loop. It's a 2-inch belt loop with a 2-inch drop. They also make a mid-ride. I have a little bit weird body dynamics, so when I put this on with a mid-ride, the mid-ride holster is like up in here, and I'd rather it be just a little bit further down away from my body so I can move a little bit more freely. Now, if you'll notice on here, I have basically 90% of the weight on this side is right here, and then basically all the weight is over here. So most of the weight sits on the front side, up on my thighs and up on my waist. So that is where most of the weight and most of the stuff is situated, and that's because I can actually drive with this belt on. Now, depending on the car, if you have some sort of like a really small sports car, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to drive with this belt on, but basically when I put this belt on, I can drive in my Explorer, no issues whatsoever, and it's very comfy. So I like to keep this area, which goes on the small of my back, very, very simple and basically nothing on it. Now there's a few flat things I could maybe put on it if I wanted to attach a few more things, but basically I leave the dump pouch rolled up, and then I get to have this nice long flat section that doesn't bug me at all when I'm driving. So I can drive for long periods of times. And because the belt is so comfy, I can basically wear it all day, no issues. I should go ahead and put it on for you right now, because it is just a standard belt. Now, I have it set up right now for when I have a sweatshirt on, because I generally just put it over top my sweatshirt. So it's a little bit more loose than it would be otherwise. But there you have the belt, and you have very quick access to all of your tools. My magazines are right in front of me, as you notice. It pulls up the belt a little bit, but again, this belt is a little bit more loose because generally I'd be wearing a sweatshirt outside, and so it's meant to go over top of that. And of course, even though it is a little bit more loose than it would be otherwise if I had a sweatshirt on it, there's no movement whatsoever. Even if I'm turning, twisting, or jumping or anything like that, the belt stays exactly where it is, which I really like. And again, that's mostly due to One, you have a lot of grip surface with the 2 inches of inner rubberized material, and that provides, at least in my opinion, a huge amount of benefit. So for a very comfy, very modular belt that you can switch out the inner belt if you want. You have 20 pieces of MOLLE to attach basically anything, even if you're just threading it on, like this UBL from Safariland, the T-Rex arm med pouch, which is actually slotted through. It's not actually on MOLLE. The Olight, you can put on basically anything. Sometimes I run some markers or some chem lights if I'm doing something at night, so I can maybe mark out where I'm doing drills at. But basically the only limits to this belt setup and what you can put onto it is your own imagination. Now, for me, as I mentioned, I don't like to put a bunch of stuff on here that I'm not going to use, that I don't need, so I don't keep a bunch of extra tools. I don't run 3 rifle mags and 4 pistol mags, and I don't double up on the mags so they're sticking 3 feet out or anything like that. I like to keep everything very simple and very easy. So basically, if you handed this belt to somebody else, they'd be able to figure out, okay, here's my med pouch, here's my magazines, here's my holster, and they're basically good to go. It's a very simple setup that basically works for everything that I do. Though again, if you're more specialized than I am, if you need something more than I do, you can put it on here to your heart's content with all of the extra MOLLE slots that are on here. So that's basically the video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. This is, of course, my own personal setup. Let me know what you guys think of it down in the comments down below, or if there's another budget belt that I should be looking at, or something that you prefer over this, or a different setup, anything like that. Once again, thank you guys for watching. If you'd like to help out the channel, check out any of the links in the description, check out my website, buy some plates or something, and that's about it for the video. So thank you guys once again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace off.